Aloha. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on, of course, with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekends. And that's right, guys, you know what I'm reviewing next, and as was clearly teased in the last Halloweenish review, you figured it out, obviously, and because I mentioned Experiment 626, and he's on my shirt, wearing this for this occasion, you know. Yes. So that's right. Another episode of the Lilo and Stitch TV series that I am now reviewing that is something Halloweenish. And this is a Halloween episode of Lilo and Stitch, the TV show, of course. And yeah, because one of Jumba's experiments just so happens to be the perfect experiment for this occasion, this haunted holiday season that's right up this experiment's alley, and with what this experiment can do, being very terrifying and so on, yeah, pretty interesting. So, yes guys, I am now reviewing the 5th episode of Season 1 of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, Spooky Experiment 300. Yeah. So, the 5th episode of the Lilo and Stitch TV series. Yeah, because, I'm pretty sure that at some point, and when I watched Lilo and Stitch, it was one of my top jams on the good old days of Disney Channel, and where it had, back in the, the good old days of Disney Channel, and in the early 2000s, they had a lot of great, 2D animated shows and such, and this being one of them, of course. So I'm pretty sure that, yeah, I did watch this at one point, but, later on, and, the many times I had, whenever would watch this and stumble upon it, and, of course, having done a rewatch of this, and here I am now doing my review on it, yeah, because this episode is another good episode of the Lilo and Stitch TV series. The show having its own Halloween episode, and great to see that, even in Hawaiian culture, they do celebrate Halloween and such, and in the case of Lilo and Stitch, yep. Especially Halloween being something right up Lilo's alley. Yeah, but until I talk more about that. And then Jumba and Pleakley, this is their first time having Halloween and Stitch. Well, I mean, Halloween would technically be something right up Stitch's alley, without a doubt. And yeah, the fact, because, we have this genetic experiment of Jumba's whom, is very scary and was built to morph into your worst fears. Like, we all have our fears, whether if it's something, that's, an object or an animal or anything like that, anything in particular. Yeah, well, Spooky would make that happen. Yeah. And, especially because Lilo and Stitch sharing, at times, things that, Lilo, as much as they deny that they're not afraid, well, they do have a couple of fears, but yeah. Yeah, but just overall, the 5th episode of Lilo and Stitch itself, it's really good. A nice episode of the show being Halloweenish, and in that lineup of other Disney shows that, they have their very own Halloween episodes. All right. So with the first things I've had to say about the 5th episode of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, Spooky Experiment 300, now out of the way, now as always, for me, read the description / the story. Spooky, aka Experiment 300, is designed to scare and terrorize his victims by morphing into their worst fears. And as I did explain, but yeah, anyways. Okay, so now with reading the description / the story out of the way, well, let's now dive in / break down the episode itself, shall we? Okay, so, well, first off, because, we already see where one of the experiment pods would become activated, in a barrel of water, and of course, it's Spooky. And already, because when Spooky is activated, noticing, like, say, a rat, then a dog, morphing into what they fear. The rat, being terrified of a cat, and a dog being terrified of a dog catcher. And Spooky being voiced by the legendary voice actor himself, and whom has at times lent his voice to some of the other experiment characters, like most prominently 221, Sparky. Good old Frank Welker. Yep. So he's the voice of Spooky, the titled character. And yeah, now with Spooky unleashed on the island, well, who knows what's next. But obviously, at some point, Stitch and Lilo are going to discover him. Meanwhile, because at the hula school, well, Lilo's showing up and, terrifying almost every kid and fellow hula classmate with what she's wearing, a undead hula dancer, because she's pretending to be dead, and she's got makeup on and with an axe on her head. And yeah, again, clearly, because Halloween is something right up Lilo's alley, and the way she does Halloween and all this, total opposite of what the other kids are doing. Yeah, they all find it scary. Even the hula teacher, because he tells Lilo that she should probably dress up as something else and maybe go as, like, what her friends, not really, are dressing up as, princesses, and that, of course, being Myrtle and her friends. And yeah, and once again, Myrtle insulting Lilo, calling her weirdo. Shut up, Myrtle. And I'm sure, you guys feel the same way too. So, Lilo does so, coming up with something new, and actually getting assistance from Pleakley. And Pleakley is actually a wardrobe designer, with his own sewing kit and such. And the various costumes we see Pleakley and Jumba try on. Jumba, he's not really having a good time with the various different costumes Pleakley comes up with that they should wear. And also Nani. Well, she was hoping that maybe some trick-or-treaters would be present, but nope, not this year. Even Stitch, he's feasting on some bits and pieces of candy. And, there would be a moment between Lilo and Stitch, talking about Halloween and, if they're afraid of anything. Stitch denies it, so does Lilo, but that is with the exception. In the case of Lilo, she is terrified of, say, broccoli and clowns, and up a hill near where their house is a scary abandoned house, and whenever she feels scared, something that would soothe her and calm her down is by singing the song Aloha Oi. Yeah, that. And then, because what would happen next? And yeah, eventually Pleakley, it doesn't take him too long to make a new costume for Lilo. However, before Lilo comes back to the hula school, Spooky emerges, taking the morphing appearance of Lilo and terrifying the kids. Lilo, whom is really spooky, her head is detached from her head, and yeah, that scares Myrtle and the others. And the hula teacher, his fear is spiders. So yeah, in this case, Spooky turns into a scary spider, and I presume a big one. Yeah, because we only see the shadow of Spooky, who is morphed into a spider. And because Spooky terrorizing everyone, and then after that, when Lilo and Stitch would come back, they find that the place is a huge mess, and the costume that Lilo now has on is a princess, but she still has the axe on her head. Now she's a undead princess or something. Yeah, with an axe on her head. But it adds a nice touch with her and her getup. But yeah, and seeing that Myrtle and the others are terrified under a table and all that, and they tell Lilo that they saw her with her head not on her body. Well, of course that wasn't her. And she finds this very suspicious and wondering what this is all about. And Stitch roaming around the school some, and he would come face to face with his cousin. He doesn't know it at first, but yeah. And Spooky, he turns into one of Stitch's big fears, water. Yes, I'm sure as you guys we're all aware that one of Stitch's biggest fears, his very own kryptonite, is water. And yeah, Spooky turning into water, trying to drown Stitch, but luckily Lilo steps in on time, and Spooky disappears, and yeah, Stitch describing what he saw. Same thing as everyone else in the hula school. You know, scary glowing eyes and all that. And, well, Lilo, she tries to get down to the case of this, like, just something about this, and maybe possibly, which she would turn out to be right, of course, that, yeah, it's one of Stitch's cousins, / one of Jumba's genetic legal experiments. And by trying to look up on the computer and such of the experiments, yep, she finds it. Experiment 300, and yep, Jumba going into detail about 300, what he's able to do, all that. And one of Jumba's fears, and yeah, more than likely Spooky would transform into, is Jumba's ex-wife. That's funny. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, Lilo and Stitch, they would then proceed to roam around the town, and while trick-or-treating is happening, to see if they can find and locate and capture Spooky. And by the way, because even though this episode turned out great, well, there was one thing that was totally absent from this episode. No Gantu. You realize that? Because yeah, somehow this episode worked without the presence of Gantu, because, well, he's got that container pod where, yeah, every time in the show an experiment is activated, then the experiment pod would, you know, then do a warning experiment so-and-so activated, yeah. But in this episode, no, nothing whatsoever. I wonder what the reason was. Not that I'm complaining or anything like that, and, you know, that, come on, why is there no Gantu? No, I mean, overall, this episode still turned out fine, but it makes you wonder, because if Gantu was a part of this episode, how would it have been, you know, like, with his presence and such? I don't know. Anyways, oh gosh, like, I do wonder, because if he had been a part of that episode, what would have been his fear? Well, I think more than likely it would have been, say, Hamsterville, but yeah, if that happened, and if we did get Gantu, that would have been hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even Hamsterville not alerting Gantu about this either. Just, yeah, no Gantu, no Reuben, no Hamsterville whatsoever. And because I said Reuben, yeah, because his original name being 625, but we know him, of course, also going by Reuben. Anyways. So, back on point, because them searching through the town, Stitch overreacts because he's got a gun, you know, that will shoot some, like noodle stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, silly string, technically. And no matter where he's walking around, and because at one point, Lilo recommends that both of them should split up, yeah. And Stitch, when he's separated from Lilo, they're both searching, each of them. Well, Stitch overreacts because of his fear now of Spooky, his fellow cousin, and starts squirting on a lot of other people around the town, you know, just overdoing it and such. I mean, it's not intentional of Stitch, he just can't help his fears and what he's going through at this moment. And meanwhile, coming back to, say, the house, well, there is at one point, and while Nani, because, you know, again, Nani was hoping that maybe this year there would be some trick-or-treaters, but nope. And she's just there watching TV in the living room, eating some of the candy, until there's a doorbell, the doorbell ring, and, well, turns out to be Cobra, but no, it is Spooky, because we do see a quick glimpse of Spooky morphing into Cobra, and, well, apparently one of Nani's big fears, and when Spooky, in disguise as Cobra, and of course Vin Rams, reprising for a few roles as Cobra, but not really Cobra, it's Spooky, well, basically Spooky, in disguise as Cobra, coming and telling Nani that he's here to take Lilo away. Yeah, that being one of her fears. And coming back to the town, because, well, yeah, Lilo noticing that Stitch is going out of hand, and, well, by this point, they've had no luck trying to find Spooky. And, well, they just, all they can do now is just head back home. They failed and couldn't find Spooky anywhere. But that is until they get back to the house. And very quickly they realize that it's not Cobra. And they go in to tackle Spooky disguised as Cobra. And Jumba and Pleakley, they hear this commotion. And by the way, one of the other costumes that Jumba and Pleakley wore, clearly, because, yeah, and even Jumba does a quote from this one movie, Gone with the Wind, because, yeah, they are clearly dressing up as the characters from Gone with the Wind, and Jumba saying, frankly, Pleakley, I don't care about this. I just, how Jumba said it was perfect. Yeah, nice reference to Gone with the Wind. But yeah, so they hear the commotion, and, well, yeah, because Nani, then discovering when, it's revealed that it's Spooky, and, well, Lilo, Stitch, Jumba, and Pleakley, they all are about to head out to capture Spooky, but Nani gets them to stop and, wanting to hear the house rules. That, Lilo is not to go alone. Stitch to be by her side. Same goes for Jumba and for Pleakley. Dog food is for dogs, not little girls. And so they proceed on. Go ahead, says Nani. But yeah, so they proceed on, and then, yeah, this would lead to where they would then come face to face and enter in the creepy, abandoned, scary house, up the hill and such. And yeah, at first, Lilo and Stitch, they're a bit scared to go in, but Lilo then starts to sing Aloha Oi by entering in, but yeah, Spooky being present, they try to chase him down. They enter into one room where there's literally a pool, and, well, there is water in this pool, and when Spooky emerges again, well, he turns into one of Lilo's feeders, clowns, and she goes for a pillar. She climbs up, and, well, then she spots a plank, because you jump on and you jump in the pool and such. She's about to aim for that. I mean, she does so, but then she would find herself on top of an edge, on top of the room, holding on for dear life, crying out to Stitch to help her. And yeah, they separated from Jumba and Pleakley, and yeah, when Spooky would encounter Jumba and Pleakley, well, as Jumba mentioned earlier, and it happens, yep, we see, we first see, one of Pleakley's fears happen, his mother, because apparently Pleakley never bothered to call back his mother, yeah, and Mrs. Pleakley, being voiced by Scott Thompson, that was funny. Then after that, Jumba sees his fear, his ex-wife. That's funny. And that's interesting, because Kevin Michael Richardson, he's listed in the cast as the voice of Captain Gantu, but again, no Captain Gantu in this episode. Again, it's a shame, but, hey, this episode still turned out great, not having Gantu. Yeah, anyways. Stitch, who now finds himself in the pool, well, he remembers to, do like what Lilo does, sing Aloha Oi, but he does at one point drown and goes under the water, but he regains consciousness and then starts to sing, he emerges, and thus he would save Lilo when she, loses her balance and, can't hold on anymore. Yeah. And, well, when they hear Jumba and Pleakley, well, most prominently Pleakley screaming, yeah, that's when they go to try and find and stop Spooky, and now the game is on between Stitch and Spooky, and Stitch no longer being terrified of what Spooky morphs into, yeah, and Stitch just, pretending to fall asleep, and just, yeah. But then eventually, yeah, Stitch would finally capture Spooky. Jumba made the right-sized container to hold Spooky, and when, Spooky at one point turns into a bat, then, boom, Stitch captures Spooky, and, managing to calm down and redeem Spooky, and the last thing we get in this episode is, now we have trick-or-treaters coming to the house, and this is because of most prominently Spooky, morphing into any of the trick-or-treaters what they are scared of, and they quickly realize that, it's fun, it's nothing real. And, the right place Spooky now belongs at is that creepy abandoned house up the hill. Yep. nice way to end off the episode. Because, yeah, with all the episodes of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, the true rightful place for all of Stitch's cousins, where they rightfully belong. Yeah. Yeah, so episode 5 of season 1 of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, Spooky, Experiment 300. This being, yeah, a true, definitive, Halloweenish episode of Lilo and Stitch. Again, really good. Despite the fact that, yeah, most prominently, no Gantu, it still turned out good without Gantu, and all the things that go on in this episode, you know, from, say, the characters, their fears, and, yeah, what Spooky Experiment 300 is like is really cool. Taking place on Halloween time, Lilo and Stitch, you know, going through their fears and managing to, you know, succeed to get past their fears, and that it's not all real, and with what Spooky was doing. Yeah, just, you know, overall, the storyline, what goes on with the characters, the experiment they come face-to-face with, everything that goes on in this Halloweenish episode of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, really good. And I'm giving Episode 5 of Season 1 of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, well, why not? 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for Episode 5 of Season 1 of the Lilo and Stitch TV series, Spooky Experiment 300. And what about you guys? What did you think of the episode itself of Lilo and Stitch the series? Episode 5 of Season 1, Spooky. Is it one of your top favorite episodes of the Lilo and Stitch series? One of your favorite Halloweenish materials to come straight from the Disney Channel animated shows? And, you know, if you sometimes watch this around Halloween time, and if Spooky's one of your top favorite experiments from Lilo and Stitch, favorite moments and everything that goes on, and if you got past, and, you know, that, you know, the fact that there's no Gantu, it was still a good episode. Yeah. But, yeah, just overall, what do you think of Episode 5 of Season 1 of Lilo and Stitch the series, Spooky Experiment 300 itself, with what all I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Episode 5 from Season 1 of Lilo and Stitch the series, Spooky Experiment 300. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, of course, continuing on with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekends, well, stay tuned, because, yeah, what I'll be reviewing next is something else animated, and it has to do with a mummy boy, where he does something Halloween. This time for sure, because, yeah, even though, yeah, I did mention / tease that back in my review of, you know, Runaway Brain, well, on account of other Halloweenish materials for me to review on the weekends, last-minute editions, yeah, but this time for sure, that's next. So, yeah, and I'm sure you still know exactly what I'm talking about. Just, yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care, peace out, and aloha. Boo! Spooky.